Hello, my loves. It's Britt, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the North Node in the 7th house and the South Node in the 1st house in the natal birth chart. And this video I'm very excited to do because this is like my life's work. This is my natal placement, so I've spent a lot of time studying it and having massive ahas and realizations about it. So I'm very excited to share this with you, and it's, perfectly in timed with, the contrast of the video I did yesterday of the opposite nodes in house placement of having North Node in 1st house. So yeah, now we're going to talk about the opposite, having North Node in the 7th house in the birth chart. So these people have a very strong sense of self. And I mean, depending on the sign placement of the South Node and the North Node, the South Node sign is going to show the qualities that are very deeply ingrained as a part of the person's personality. Like, they are so stuck on there, they are so deep, and these people have a deep rooted selfishness, and it's not coming from a hurtful place. Like, they're not deliberately trying to be selfish. It's just that they naturally think of themselves first. They think of what they want. They think of, sorry, my aunt and my son are just playing downstairs. If you could hear talking, that's what that is, and I apologize for that. So they have this deep seated sense of self, and every decision they make, everything that they do is based on, what do I want? What do I really feel like? Or it's all based on the self and the personal desires, and yeah, a lot of focus on the self. And that actually can end up being a good thing, and here's why. These people don't easily get sucked into other people's problems and become depressed or lose themselves in a relationship. They generally are pretty grounded and pretty solidly footed in their own path and purpose. And that can be a really good quality when we're, trying to avoid codependency and, depression based in not listening to the voice of your own soul. So this can actually end up being a good thing. But the suffering is here when they start to activate into their soul, okay? And they realize that they are so incredibly lonely. And they're so incredibly separate from other people because the sense of self is so strong that they've actually spent many lifetimes, maybe as a warrior or as someone who's just had to focus on themselves alone. They're actually kind of uncomfortable with one-on-one relationships. They actually kind of feel like this oddball in the world where they can have this incredible awkwardness in relating with people. And Martin Schulman even says, and this is the best book on the nodes, by the way. I even shared it. I watched one of my old videos on the nodes today, and it's from 2016. And I talked about this book then, and I'm going to talk about this book today in 2023. Karmic Astrology by Martin Schulman is the most accurate depiction of the nodes that I've ever read. And he's brilliant. His other books are brilliant too. If you're wanting to look at astrology from a past life karmic perspective, definitely recommend that book. So he even says that this inability to relate to other people can even show up in the person as like an impediment or like a disability, where like they actually have something physically wrong with them that sets them apart from others so much. Like, for me, I would think of some kind of deformity on the physical body because we're talking about the 1st house. So it could even go that far that this person is just so unnatural at relating with other people that they actually have this blockage or something even physical that sets them apart from other people. So there's a lot of uncomfortability with relationships and partnerships, but a deep knowing that that is where their growth will come from. And so there can be even an obsession with romantic relationships, and that is actually the soul pulling them towards where they will really learn the most. So in this lifetime, your growth is not going to come from focusing on yourself and your own selfish desires and developing yourself and, your self-worth and everything like that, as it is for some people. Your biggest growth is going to come in the form of marriage, partnerships, relationships of all kinds, okay? The 7th house. And especially the marriage relationship. I really feel like that is where the biggest growth comes for these people. So even though they're unnatural in relationships and they can feel kind of awkward, they can have commitment issues that, you know, before they really step into their North Node, they can feel like kind of a loner and they'd rather just do it on their own. And the second a relationship starts to infringe on their freedom, they're like, I'm out. That can be the negative tendency. Where they really actually learn and grow the most is when they learn to put aside their huge ego and actually devote to another person and actually develop qualities of love, consideration, caring for another person and not just for the self. And their biggest growth can come when they actually make sacrifices for another person. They actually start to base their actions around, how can I truly serve? How can I truly help people? Okay? And this part, I read this today again for like, I've read this so much in the Martin Schulman book, but he says even that they can attract a partner who's kind of an escapist or who's needing a reality check, and they can kind of ground them back down to themselves. So my soulmate partner, who's now in heaven, he actually had the reversal nodes. He had the North Node in 1st and South Node in 7th. And I can see how I was actually naturally, by just being myself, helping him grow more of a self, which was his path. And me, it's actually about learning to be less selfish and more devoted to a partner. So it was like this perfect soulmate thing. But anyway, so you can find that the people that you end up in a relationship with, you're helping them develop more of their self, right? And you're actually learning to consider yourself less when you're making important decisions. And this can also go the opposite too, because like I've said about the nodes before, sometimes when we're kind of catching on to our lessons and our soul lessons, we can have this sort of abandonment of the South Node for a bit and go fully into the North Node. So then we can see this placement showing some codependency or showing some addiction to other people, because that's when they've lost the balance. It's common for the North and South Nodes for people to be really back and forth, either totally on one end of the spectrum, totally South Node, or totally North Node, which is also unbalanced. And I firmly believe that we need to integrate the qualities of the South Node and use them as their gifts, right? They're really natural, ingrained habit patterns that can be gifts when used properly, right? And then go to the North Node from that place. So with this South Node, we have this great ability to really help others with their confidence, okay? And that is where we're going to find the most joy, is when we are focusing our energies to help other people feel confident and know themselves, right? Because we know ourselves and we know how good that feels. And we know how much clarity there comes from actually knowing yourself and what you're here to do and your purpose and all that. When we can help others build that up in themselves, that's when we feel true joy. When we think about how can we help others, how can we bless others, how can we truly serve another, give to another from the heart space, right? Not from a selfishness of like giving to get. No, an unselfish giving. When we fully tap into that place of unselfish giving, our life will be truly blessed, okay? Because that is what the soul is calling for with the North Node in the 7th house. The soul is calling for true, loving, givingness, qualities of consideration for others, because the natural South Node response with this, and this is something that the people might not even be aware of with this placement, but there is actually this tendency of not even really noticing other people. Like when you're making a decision or when you're, relating with someone, it's like you're all focused on self and not enough focused on them. And so it's really about coming out of that. And that's the natural response. That's the fear-based response. It's not coming from like a purposely hurtful place. It's just coming from a natural place of that's what's comfortable for them. It's comfortable to focus on yourself, focus on your physical appearance, focus on your own achievements, focus on what you like to do and all this about you. That's what's natural. It's not like you're trying to hurt anybody and totally be inconsiderate, but it's just who you naturally are. So there can be this tendency to, when you're relating with someone, to either constantly talk about the self or not even really notice another person's emotional state. Like, let's say you're in a relationship and you're not really even noticing what they're doing. You're just focusing on you, and they're just like an extension of you, when really the soul growth is to actually focus on that person as a person. And this is what actually starts to feel really good when you do come into your North Node and you start to focus on people, and you actually start to see their souls, and you start to breathe life into them and give them the will where there was none. That's what Martin Schulman says in that book. And that's our gift to people. That's our gift to life. That's our gift to humanity, is to use this strong sense of self, not just for vanity and, all these personal reasons, but to help another who maybe, has the opposite North Node or something, or has more Piscean or more Libran qualities, to help them know themselves, stand up for themselves, and really take action in their own life, because we find that so natural to do for our own self. So this is what we're really here to help others with. And one of the main areas of soul growth is going to come from the marriage partnership, the soulmate relationship. This is a soulmate lifetime. There are maybe many specific soulmates lined up to help with your growth. So for this placement specifically, if you feel incredibly drawn to a relationship, to a soulmate partnership, and you feel this like almost obsession with that area, that's actually okay. That's healthy. That is the North Node pulling you to where you're actually going to grow, because you can't do it alone in this lifetime. You want to do it alone. You want to have all your lessons on your own and have your own ways of doing things and not really take any insight from other people, but that's not where the growth comes. The growth comes when someone is conjuncting your North Node or aspecting your North Node and pulling you towards that soul growth. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a person aspecting your North Node either. Like, it could be just a soulmate person. The relationship, it's all kinds of relationships with the 7th house, right? So follow that impulse to learn from people, to grow with people, to be social. This is a social lifetime. Even though you might want to be a loner, you're not meant to in this lifetime. That's not where the growth is going to come. And yeah, the other thing that can happen with this placement is, because there is this sort of unnaturalness about relating to other people, there can be like an obsession with the physical appearance too. There can be like, these can be like the bodybuilders, or like, the person who's just obsessed with like fashion and the way they appear to other people. And that is just because that's their natural way, is to focus on self, to relate to others, when really, not that there's anything wrong with being focused on your body. And I like to be focused on my appearance. I wore this dress for this video, like it's fun for me, it's natural. But I'm talking about when it becomes an obsession. It's actually because the person is so insecure at relating with other people. And there can even be shyness with this aspect too, because it's like, there's been so many lifetimes of just where you only had to consult with yourself and yourself alone. And so when you're relating with people, there's like it's this foreign territory, but it's what you need to do for your growth. So that's something I wanted to share. There was something else. Yeah, focusing on the finer sides of life, artistic, beauty, lightness, Libran energy is really going to heal the soul as well, and let go of this warrior energy that only considers its own self and its own safety. It's more about coming into that polarity of, the 7th house, and beauty and grace, and learning how to actually, have consideration for other people, consider their feelings. Like, when I look back on my life, there were times when I just didn't even notice when other people were going through something, or I was kind of in my own bubble, right? Which can be good, because I didn't easily get sucked into things that, maybe I shouldn't have. So I was able to actually develop myself. But the true growth actually comes from devoting to another, helping another, sacrificing for another. That's where you're really going to get your soul growth with this one. And it's, I think it's actually kind of a good one to have, because, the selfishness is so strong. Like, these quotes that we see out there, you have to know who you are first before you can love another, or you have to know who you really are and your own purpose to be happy. And so there is some good qualities of it, because, Aries is naturally the first house, right? So having the South Node in the first house means you've naturally developed that Aries sense of self, which is the first step. That's like the baby being born, but now it's about growing through relationships with others. So yeah, that's my video. I hope this is helpful. I hope it relates. And you always have to take into consideration the signs too. So it's going to be the South Node sign that's going to be overdeveloped in the person and their sense of self, and then it's going to be the North Node sign that they need to focus on developing, and that's going to come through partnerships. That sign is going to show the soul growth that will come through the other people who will be their soulmate people to pull them along and help them on the path. Okay? Love you guys. Thanks for watching. I do offer readings. I have 2 types of readings. I have a synastry one, which is the relationship chart comparing 2 people's charts. So much fun. And then I have a soul purpose one where we go deep into the North Node and the rest of the chart, showing your unique soul purpose, as it is my purpose to show you your purpose. Okay. Love you guys, and talk soon.